right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Sunday, July 6th. I hope that you and your families have had a great 4th of July. Having a great 4th of July weekend. We had some good food, good times, good drinks, chilled out by the pool, seeing a lot of family. It was great. It was great holiday, great weekend. And seeing a lot of faces I hadn't seen in a while, and I think that's what it's all about: bringing the family together, eating good food, and obviously enjoying the holiday that it is. So, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, shout out to you guys. Shout out to the Wrench Gang. Shout out to the family, all the listeners, all the watchers, as we prepare to get into the AFC North, one of the hardest fought divisions in the NFL. AFC North. Your Steelers, your Browns, your Ravens, your Bengals. This is a hard group. They play tough football. They play gritty football. They play in the worst of environments. And, it just seems that this group of teams have so much heart, so much talent, and so much tenacity out there on the field. And a lot of love, a lot of respect, a lot of hatred, a lot of rivalry, if you will. But yeah, we'll get into each of these four teams today, and we'll see how you guys feel about it. Make sure you hit that like, hit that thumbs up. Of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you do subscribe, follow, like, all that kind of good stuff as we get started here. Let me hop in the chat first. Shout out to Jonas. What up, man? What's going on with you on this beautiful Sunday? Shout out to Sassy in the building. Good to see you. Good to see you. Wrench Gang holding it down. I did put up a vote or a poll for you guys to vote on YouTube. Who takes the North? We currently have the Ravens at 50% and the Bengals at 25%, and then the Browns at 25%. So no love for the Steelers yet. All right, cool. We'll see how that changes as the stream goes on. Quick shout out to El Jefe 57. Shout out to you, man. Holding it down on TikTok. Let's go. All right. Let's start with I don't want to do Baltimore yet. Baltimore last. We're gonna start with the Cleveland Browns. Now, if you didn't know, or if you haven't got the latest news about Shador, I do think that the Browns are going to move on from him. And it's kind of wild because, you would think that they would understand that you're looking for a quarterback to lead your franchise. You're looking for a quarterback to help get you guys in the direction that you're going in. So I'm hearing that Flacco is going to be the starting guy until they figure things out. So, yeah, I think Shador is out. I think they're actually going to choose Dylan Gabriel over Shador, and that's going to leave him in the win. So we'll have to figure out where he's going to go. That's a whole other topic, of course, but I figured I would just let you guys know that's going on. If you didn't know, I'm sure if you're a Cleveland fan, you do know. But if you didn't know, you know. I think Shador is out. Shout out to Sassy, says, we are really just talking about Ravens and Bengals. Browns will always be Brownies and Steelers. Well, that's a wild card this year. All right, let's get into this depth chart, y'all. Let's get into the depth chart. Obviously, Deshaun Watson, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and Dylan Gabriel. No Shador Sanders. For your running backs, you got Jerome Ford, Quinshon Judkins, ballin'. Dylan Sampson, Pierre Strong Jr., and what do we got for wide receivers? Jerry Jeudy, who balled out. I think he balled out, right? Left the Broncos, came over to the Browns, All right. David Bell, DeAndre Carter, Luke Fleury, and then you got Cedric Tillman, Jeremiah Thrash, Caden Davis, Gage Lavardane. And then for the third, you've got Deontay Johnson, Michael Woods II, Jalen Gill, Keyshawn Johnson. For your tight end, David Njoku, Harold Fannin Jr., Blake Whiteheart, and Brandon Bates on the fourth. For your fullback, you got Troy Hairston, left tackle, DeJuan Jones, left guard, Joel Bitonio. Centers, Ethan Pachek. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. And then we got right guard Wyatt Teller, and then right tackle Jack Conklin. For your defense, shout out to Caden got banned. What up, man? Why you get banned, Caden? For your defense, you got Myles Garrett, Malik Collins, Mason Graham, Isaiah McGuire, Carson Schweitzinger, Jordan Hicks, Mohamed Diabati, Denzel Ward, Grant Delpit, Ronnie Hickman, Martin Emerson Jr., and Greg Newsome II. For your special teams, you got Dustin Hopkins, Corey Bojorquez, DeAndre Carter, and Rex Sanahara for your long snapper. All right, so we obviously know that Joe Flacco is going to be the starting quarterback at this point. That's been the talks, that's been the discussions. As far as the last conversation that I heard or the news that I seen, he is looking to be the starter. Now, we still don't really know as far as what's going to happen with Deshaun. It's really up in the air as far as him. Obviously, lots of money involved. Obviously, the Browns trying to figure things out. I do think it makes sense to start off with Joe Flacco being in this situation. I get it, but at the same time, I think getting rid of Shador and keeping Dylan Gabriel is going to be a huge question mark, obviously, if it doesn't work out. So, yeah, Joe Flacco, you've got the veteran presence. You've got, a quarterback who's going to know what to do and the first couple weeks to get things going. And we'll have to see. Obviously, we know that this roster is going to change before preseason, so we're a little early. But that's where we're at right now. Obviously, for your running backs, you got Jerome Ford, Quinshon Judkins. All eyes are on Quinshon right now. We know that Jerome's obviously the starter, but Quinshon, we expect him to definitely ball out. So I do think they're going to use them in tandem once we get started with the season. Obviously, we know ever so reliable Jerry Jeudy. We know he's going to do great. David Bell, DeAndre Carter, obviously on the third. We'll probably see a mix of those guys. Cedric Tillman. I like this wide receiver group. Deontay Johnson. You've got some good quality wide receivers as long as Joe Flacco can get the ball to these guys. And I think the offensive line is going to be one of those situations for him is where he figures out enough time to move around that ball. I mean, this offense could be interesting, especially with that run game. Then obviously, you get your tight end involved, Dakin Njoku. He's a beast. I really like what he does on the field. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the Browns really actually trying to figure out some kind of chemistry this year, opposed to just everything being up in the air because of Deshaun Watson and Deshaun Watson this and Deshaun Watson that, and just completely breaking the chemistry of the Browns. And so I think you got to figure out as far as how you're going to get your team in order, how you're going to get your team into a spot where they have chemistry, you've got a good pass game, you've got a good running game. Because we know the defense is decent. And if you have a good offense rolling, the defense is going to have good morale. They're going to play better for you. They're going to get you some opportunities to get the ball back. And so that is the question on my side. I'm looking at what's this defense really going to do. Well, we all know what Myles Garrett is capable of. We don't have to speak about that. The man's a beast. Myles Garrett, we don't have to worry about him. Malik Collins, Mason Graham, Isaiah McGuire, Carson. These guys definitely need to hit that line hard, create some opportunities, get some stops, get some good sacks. And then obviously, you got Denzel Ward, Grant Delpit. These guys are going to have to make plays. If the Browns are going to have a chance in the AFC North, it's going to be mostly dependent on their defense. Yeah, you're going to need a hell of a lot of offense, but you're going to need more so defense to keep these games close, to give your offense an opportunity to get things rolling. And it could happen. It could happen. I think this is one of the things where we had a conversation about the Patriots, right? If the Browns can figure out some kind of identity, which is the same thing that the Patriots need to do, if the Browns can figure out some kind of identity in defense and start off strong with that, we'll get into the schedule in a moment. But I think that will be the opportunity for this offense to really get things going, particularly by week 3 or week 4. That's how I'm looking at it. But let me hop in the chat before we get to the schedule. Shout out to Jonas, says Browns did it smart. They waited for 2 young quarterbacks in the draft, which won't cost them a lot of money. Moved out of number 2 to gain an extra draft pick next year in the first round. Yeah, but are they making the right choice with Dylan Gabriel? That's the question. Mark says, getting the band back together before August? Of course, you already know how we do, Mark. Shout out to you, bro. Jonah says, best team in the North is the Ravens unless the Bengals pay their defensive ends. Be crazy if A-Rod stays healthy and the Steelers take the North. There's a lot of guys with new homes and some great rookies. We're going to get into the Steelers later, but I want to get into this schedule for the Browns so we can see how things are working here. Before we get started with the schedule, y'all, make sure you hit that like, hit that thumbs up, and of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you do subscribe and follow. So here we go. Cleveland Browns schedule. As far as for preseason, they'll start off against the Panthers. Then they'll go against the Eagles and the Rams. So that's week 1, week 2, and week 3. Panthers, Eagles, and then the Rams. As far as the regular season, they're going to start right out the gate against a divisional rival. Week 1 is going to be against the Bengals. Week 2 against the Ravens. So back-to-back divisional rivals. Week 3 is going to be against Green Bay. Week 4 against the Lions. Week 5 against the Vikings. That may be an overseas game at 9:30. Week 6 is going to be against the Steelers. Week 7 against the Dolphins. Week 8 against the Patriots. The Browns will have their bye week, week 9. Week 10 is going to be against the Jets. They'll come back again to play the Ravens. And then the Raiders for week 12. Week 13 is going to be the 49ers. Week 13 is the 49ers. Week 14 is the Titans. Week 15 is the Bears. Week 16, they'll go against the Bills. Week 17, the Steelers again, and then they'll wrap it up. Week 18, they'll wrap up the season against the Bengals. Shout out to One Fallen Hero. Shout out to you, man. So this is a tough one. This is a very, very tough one. If you're a Browns fan, this looks really, really scary. You're starting off against your 2 divisional rivals. Then you get into Green Bay. Then you're smack right into Detroit, Minnesota, then the Steelers. So this, like I said before, the defense is going to be the most important thing that these Browns have to get together, especially in the first 4 weeks. I said it earlier. I'm saying it now. You're starting off against the Bengals. Now, the question comes into whether or not these Bengals are going to be able to get things together this year with that offensive line. Is Joe Burrow going to be the great Joe Burrow that we know, or is he just going to continue on in this slump that we've seen since last year? I think that's the biggest question that you're looking at. For me, I think this may be the year that Joe Burrow comes back, rehabbing that wrist, get this team back together, get the offense back flowing. I think this would be a really, really good one week 1. I wouldn't sleep on Joe Burrow starting off strong. So I will be taking the Bengals for week 1. Week 2 is going to be against the Ravens. Obviously, Baltimore Ravens, Lamar, King Henry. That Browns defense is going to have a tough time. They're going to have a tough time dealing with it. Baltimore moves the ball. They'll probably score very well. It'll probably be a 2-score game there. I'm going to take the Ravens for week 2. Week 3 gets a little interesting, right? Green Bay, as much as I respect Jordan Love and, that Green Bay team and those guys, what they're able to do, I do think that this could be a good one because especially if the Browns aren't really able to get things going and it's, they start like an 0-2, week 3 could be maybe the bounce back game against Green Bay. So I may give the Browns the benefit of the doubt there, and I'll take the Browns in a stunner against Green Bay. Week 4 against Detroit. Once again, this is going to come down to, the defense. Are they going to be able to stop, Sonic and Knuckles? It's going to be rough, and then you got St. Brown, you got Laporte over there. You got a lot of stuff going on, and you got a solid defense. And I think the most important thing as far as with Detroit is, your coach. You got the coach there. That's, that's a bad man. He'll decide to make some, risky decisions, and it's 4th and 2, 4th and 3. He might go for it, and that shifts the whole dynamic of the game. So I think that's that's something to pay attention to. But yeah, I got to go with Detroit on that one for week 4. Hopping over to TikTok. Shout out to Avery. What up, man? What's going on with you? Um, and then as far as getting into Minnesota Week 5, I think this could be a very good game, right? You've got JJ, you've got Darnold, you've got no Darnold. If I apologize, JJ over there who's stepping up. So JJ, I think this will be, his first year. He's coming off the injury, so this will be his first year to really get things going. I do think that the defense for the Browns will give him some trouble, so this will even out this team, even though we know that Minnesota has, a solid offense and a really, decent defense. But yeah, I think this will be a little even just because of the inexperience with JJ being out on the field. So week 5, I'll give Browns the benefit of the doubt. You got that veteran quarterback out there with Flacco. Unless that changes, I'll ride with the Browns on that one. Week 6, you're back to a divisional rival against the Steelers. What's Aaron Rodgers going to do? Well, what is Aaron Rodgers going to do? I think that's the big question. Is he going to, play his best game, or is this the end of Mike Tomlin? We'll get into that later. I think the defense, for the Steelers is definitely going to ball out this year. Aaron Rodgers coming over, I just don't know how that chemistry is going to work over there. I just don't see it. I could see this being a close one, though, just because they're divisional rivals. And for me, it's a 50-50. It really is. It's a 50-50. If I have to make the guess or the bet, I'm probably putting it on the Steelers just because it's one of those games. One of those games. You got the Steelers at home. You got Aaron Rodgers. You got that Steelers defense. Yeah, I'm going to go Steelers there. Next up, Miami. So now this is where I start to question, once again, the defense, right? Because if you pressure Tua, you get him in a situation to where he can't move the ball, well, then, you got yourself a game there. They'll be in your backyard. They'll be coming to Cleveland. So I think this could be another situation where, hey, try to finish good before you get to your bye week. I'll take the Browns there. I'm comfortable with that. Week 8 against New England. So what's going on with Drake May and, the chemistry as far as with him and Stephon Diggs and Ramondre Stevenson over there? Are these guys going to be, playing championship football? I doubt it. Will this be a good game? Sure. So, yeah, once again, this is another 50-50 for me, and I think it's just going to come down to the defense. And I think week 8, I'm fine with the Browns here, but like I said, it's a 50-50. I really do think this could go either way, and it's just all going to depend on the defense because Drake May can throw that ball. And this will be, the year where I think the Patriots may start to mix things up. But I will take the Browns there. Week 9, they'll get into their bye. And I'm going to hop in the chat real quick. Shout out to the Coach Plays. What up, man? What's going on with you? Hope you and the family's been well as well. Let's go. Coach Plays in the house. Let's see here. Yeah, they lost Chubbs as well. Yeah. I heard Chubbs is coming back. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I did hear that Chubbs was coming back. Shout out to you guys. So, yeah, moving on. Week 9 is a bye week. Week 10 against the Jets, Justin Fields. Justin Fields, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, those guys. This could be a good one. Dogfight in the making. Mobile quarterbacks. How good are the Browns with mobile quarterbacks? I think they're fairly well. And if Myles Garrett can get his hand on, Justin Fields back there, it's going to be a nightmare for this Jets offense. And, yeah, I could see the Browns potentially taking this one. Then they play against Baltimore again, right? I got to go with Baltimore. I just don't think they're going to be able to handle that offense between Lamar and Henry. Too many options. Too many ways that could go as far as opportunities to make plays for Baltimore to be able to score. So I'm going to take the Ravens again there. The Raiders, toss-up. This is a toss-up for me. I mean, we'll get into the Raiders later, but I think this is another situation where who the hell knows what's going to happen with the Raiders. There's so many variables. And we're getting well into, later on in the season. So, obviously, what we're doing now may change. But just from preliminary looking into this, I mean, I'd probably go, Browns in this one. Week 13, I got to go 49ers. Week 14, Titans. I'm not sure what Cam Ward's going to do. Will Levis, what's going on with the Titans? Sorry, Tactical. I'm sorry, bro. I don't know what to tell you. It's been very rough. It's been very rough for those Titans, and hopefully Cam Ward does something. But for right now, I mean, that's some inexperience out on the field. I don't think Will Levis can close the deal. I'll take the Browns there in a surprising one. Week 15, the Bears. Chubb's on the Texans. Okay, shout out to you, Coach Flays. So yeah, next for the Bears, I'll take the Browns there against the Bears. Week 16 against the Bills. I got to go with the Bills. Week 17, they'll play the Steelers again. They may flip-flop. So, I'll give the Steelers week 6, and then I'll say the Browns take it by week 17. And then they'll wrap it up against the Bengals week 18. And this will be a TBD game. So, depending on if it's for a playoff position. But we all know that don't matter. Sometimes you get teams who know they ain't going, and they just want to beat whoever they need to beat because it's a divisional rival, and they don't want them to go either. So, who knows? But we'll see. We'll see as far as how that goes down the road. So there you go. That's my thoughts on the Cleveland Browns schedule before we get into the Steelers, Bengals, and the Ravens. So Chubbs is now on the Texans. Okay, I gotta look into that. I haven't really had much chance to look into the Texans yet before we get into it. But we will talk about those Texans eventually here later. Big T, what up, man? Shout out to you, bro. What's going on with you? The Browns has a tough schedule this year. I say they might go 7-10. Yeah, it's not looking good. It's not looking good. You got a few gimmies maybe, and even then it's not a gimme. It's it's like they got a shot at winning. And then there's a lot where if things just aren't clicking and they're not playing their best football, it can become a nightmare really fast and very early. And, that's when you start seeing people get fired and all that kind of stuff. But, we'll get into all that this season. All right. So there's your Cleveland Browns 2025 schedule, my thoughts. Obviously, if you guys end up watching this later, make sure that you do drop in the comments. Let me know what you think as we move on to the Steelers. Pittsburgh. Ladies and gentlemen, Pittsburgh Steelers. So we're on the AFC North today, and wouldn't be right if we didn't talk about the Steelers, right? They were second last year. And as far as the depth chart, we get into Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, Skylar Thompson. Now, here's a question for the chat. Here's a question. Is this the end of Mike Tomlin? You've had a winning career. You've been with this Steelers franchise for roughly 2 decades. I think the real question is, will this be the end of Mike Tomlin? Because I think Aaron Rodgers knows that this is his last season. And I think the Steelers fans know that this is his last season. So at this point, what are your expectations for Aaron Rodgers? Is this the last hurrah? Or is this just, hey, I'm just going to collect one more paycheck before I hang it up? It's a solid question, right? We know that he had the injury last year with the Jets. We know that, unfortunately, it didn't work out. And, it didn't come back and do anything significant. And so, obviously, he moves on to the Steelers now, and there's question marks. There's question marks about him. There's question marks about the franchise. So, hey. That's the question. As far as your running backs go, you got Jalen Warren, still locking it in. Caleb Johnson, Kenneth Gainwell, and then Trey Sermon. DK Metcalf came over from Seattle. I think that's a good one, right? You're going to have DK Metcalf out there. Yes, he's well over his prime, but I do think that he's still reliable. He's still going to make some big plays. He's still going to get you some touchdowns. And, he's going to be able to definitely be a significant asset out there. So I like the pickup. Calvin Austin as well, Robert Woods. you've got some interesting names that could be beneficial, but that's only if Aaron Rodgers can get these individuals the ball. And that's not to say that Aaron Rodgers can't throw the ball, because we know that he can, but I do think that he's lost a step. I do think that he's a little slower now, and that offensive line is going to have to work really hard to make sure that he can get that ball off. So, for the seconds, you got Caleb Johnson. I'm sorry, that's the running backs. You got Roman Wilson, and then Brandon Johnson for the third, and then Keyshawn Williams. You got Scotty Miller, and then Lance McCutcheon and Montana Luminaeus, Craig. Ben Skoranek, who comes over. Wasn't he with the Chargers? Not the Chargers. The Rams. Rams, right? Ben Skoranek coming over from the Rams, and then Rock Taylor for your wide receivers. Tight ends, Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, Darnell Washington, and Connor Hayward. Wasn't Jonnu Smith with if I'm not mistaken, the Dolphins? He just came over, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure he just came over from the Dolphins. So, yeah, I mean, couple good pickups. I like what I'm seeing. Once again, Aaron Rodgers is in a situation to where he can make things work, but he had that with the Jets. He could have made that work. So, my hopes aren't too high. I do think that this is a bomb year for the Steelers to get a high draft pick next year. But I won't completely write off the Steelers, because I do think at the end of the day, you've got some good talent. You've got some good offense there that he'll be able to work with. And then as far as, that offensive line, you've got Broderick James, you got Isaac Samalu, you got Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and Troy Fontanu. So we'll have to see how it goes. For the defense, you got Derek Harmon, Keanu Benson, Cameron Hayward, TJ Watt, who expected to be paid almost quarterback money. Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, Alex Highsmith, Darius Slay, Deshaun Elliott, Juan Thornhill, Joey Porter Jr., and Jalen Ramsey, who came over. What a name. And he's a little older now, but still, he's able to make some plays, so don't sleep on Jalen Ramsey. So, once again, you have the pieces, right? You got decent offense. You've got a pretty solid defense. They'll go out there and make plays for you. They'll get you the ball back. Could we be completely wrong? Could this be the Steelers team that, figures things out and gets to the playoffs and puts Aaron Rodgers in this situation that people didn't think he'd be in? It could be there. But let's look at the schedule. Here we go. So as far as preseason, Week 1, the Steelers will start with Jacksonville. Week 2 against Tampa Bay. Week 3 against the Panthers. For the regular season, they'll start off against the Jets. How fitting, right? Aaron Rodgers leaves the Jets, goes over to the Steelers, and now he'll be playing the Jets and, Justin Fields on Week 1. That'll be a very interesting game. I don't see Aaron Rodgers losing that one, just because, it's kind of payback situation. I'm dropping stuff. Payback situation. Week 2 against Seattle Seahawks. Once again, DK Metcalf coming over, going to have something to prove against his old team. A little bad blood there, maybe not. Week 3 against the Patriots. Obviously, interesting team there as far as, them shaping things up and putting things together. Week 4 against the Vikings. Week 5, they'll have their bye week. Week 6, they'll go against the Browns. Week 7 against the Bengals. Week 8, Green Bay. Then it's the Colts, the Chargers, Bengals, Bears. Week 13, the Bills. Week 14, the Ravens. Week 15, the Dolphins. And then Detroit, Cleveland, and then Baltimore. So, yeah, if they're going to do anything, it's gonna require a lot of work. That is for sure. So let's get into this one. Like I said, Week 1, I think the Steelers take that one. Week 2, interesting. I like the Seahawks. I like what they've been doing. They're a sneaky team, right? They got a lot of offense, decent defense. Could spell a little bit of trouble for Aaron Rodgers if he's not able to move that ball. This could be an interesting one to look at for sure on Week 2, but I will give the edge to the Steelers there. Week 3 against New England. I will take New England here. Week 4 against the Minnesota Vikings. I'll take the Steelers there. Week 5, they'll get into their bye week. Week 6 Cleveland. I'm going to take the Steelers there. Week 7 against the Bengals. This is where I think it really gets interesting, because this is where you're going to see if Aaron Rodgers actually means business or not. And I think both sides. I think this is the game where you're going to see whether or not Aaron Rodgers means business with these Steelers and whether or not Joe Burrow is back to playing at his full potential in championship caliber. Now, once again, I'm expecting Joe to come back and play at an elite level. If he cannot, I think that defense, he's going to have big problems with that Steelers defense. And that's why I will give them the edge, because the opportunity for Aaron Rodgers in this kind of situation with that defense could be very beneficial if Joe makes mistakes out on that field. Obviously, we're talking week 7, so anything could happen up until that point. But the expectation for me is that Joe Burrow does come back and changes things around. So, once again, this for me is a 50-50 game. But defensively, I will give the edge to the Steelers in this one, just because we haven't seen Joe step back into the limelight yet. So week 8 against Green Bay, once again, you're right, a little bit of bad blood game. You know, you got Aaron Rodgers, Steelers, Green Bay's coming into town. This will be a really good one. This is a Sunday night game, so you basically got them doing a Thursday night primetime game on October 26th. And they're doing a primetime Sunday night game on October 26th. Sorry, Thursday the 16th for the Bengals. And then October 26th for Green Bay. So, you know, primetime, you get Aaron Rodgers, you got Jordan Love there. This will be a really good game. I feel like that Green Bay team is a little younger, a little faster, maybe a little hungrier. This is one that I would probably, you know, veer more over to Green Bay with. I think this one makes sense. But it'll be a dogfight for sure. Week 9 against the Colts, I'll take the Steelers there. Week 10 against the Chargers, I think this will be another good one. And, you know, I'll probably go with the Chargers on that one. Week 11 against the Bengals. Now, you know, they'll actually have the Bengals come into their neck of the woods. And so, hey, it comes back to whether or not Joe Burrow is playing at his, you know, playing at his best. Yeah, they may flip-flop, but I'm going to say Steelers in this one as well. Week 12, Bears. I'm going to go Steelers there. Week 13 against the Bills. December game. Could be snowing, could be cold. We love snow games. I'm going to go Bills there. Week 14 against the Ravens. I'm going to take the Ravens. Week 15 against Miami. I will take the Steelers. Week 16 against Detroit. I like this one. Depending on, you know, playoff scenarios and all that, this could be a very significant game. But I'm going to side with Detroit there. Just a lot of offense. Good defense. I think that'll be trouble for that Steelers organization. Week 17 against the Browns. I'll take the Steelers there. And they'll go against Baltimore week 18 to wrap things up. And once again, we'll have to see what happens for these TBD games. But that's how I feel about the Steelers' schedule. I think, you know, Aaron Rodgers coming over, you're not expecting much. And that also could be a big benefit for the Steelers, because everyone's writing Aaron Rodgers off, including myself. I'm not scared to say it. It's just the reality of it. And we tend to see that when people do write quarterbacks like that off, they find a way to sneak into a playoff situation, and then, you know, maybe something can happen. We'll see. We'll see. All right, let me hop into the chat. Says, I like it when you hate on my Jets. Listen, I don't be hating. I just call it how I see it. That's all. I just call it how I see it. Shout out to you, Connor. Shout out to all of y'all holding it down on TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. I appreciate all of you for rocking with us. If you have not, make sure that you hit that like, hit that thumbs up, and of course, subscribe and follow. That way you don't miss out. Before we get into the Bengals and the Ravens, College Football 26 comes out tomorrow. I will be streaming that. I'm excited for it. I know some of you have been asking, hey, Jay, when we going to get back to the Madden and the college football? Well, college football comes out tomorrow. I'll be on that tomorrow, so make sure you guys lock it in. Eric Brown says, what up, Jay? We ready for some football? Yes, we are. FY4B says, not a Bengals fan, but Burrow was arguably the best quarterback last season. This talk about Burrow being elite again? Sure. But they didn't make it to the playoffs. How can you be elite if you don't make it to the playoffs? All that work could have been the MVP, but didn't get the MVP because why? It didn't matter. Because when you stat pad and you don't get to the show, nobody cares. That's the truth. Shout out to you, Michelle. So just in time for the Bengals. Just because I'm in Ohio, not because I'm a fan. And listen, I like Joe Burrow, you know, but it was really a shame. All that wasted talent, and unfortunately, just couldn't get it done. So there you go. There you go. I mean, we could be talking about Sam Darnold right now, right? We could. We will. I mean, look at what he did. All right, let's get on to these Bengals. Let's get on to these Bengals. Third in the AFC North. Last season, Lamar, Allen, and Burrow, top 3 quarterbacks. Is it enough? That's always going to be the question. Is it enough? Is your best enough? Can you will your team to win? That's the question. Can you avoid the sacks? Well, we got to put it on the offensive line. We can't put that on Burrow. Well, the quarterback's job is to get rid of the ball too, right? You got all these high stats, but we go look at them sacks. They up there too. They up there too. All right, let's talk about these Bengals, y'all. These are the teams that everybody gets mad at me when I start talking about. When I start talking about the AFC North, people get mad. But I love it. Y'all know I love all this. I'm totally fine with it. I take all the smoke. I want all of it. Let's get into the depth chart. Joe Burrow, Jake Browning, Logan Woodside, and then Peyton Thorne. Your running back, Chase Brown, Zach Moss, Samaje Perine, and Taj Brooks. For your wide receivers, you got Jamar Chase, Jermaine Burton, Isaiah Williams, and Rashad Owens. T. Higgins, Charlie Jones, Cole Burgess, Jordan Moore, Andre Losivas, Kendrick Pryor, Mitchell Tinsley, and then Jamoy Mays. For your tight end, Mike Gesicki, Drew Sample, Eric All Jr., and Tanner Hudson. Left tackle is going to be Orlando Brown Jr., left guard Cordell Volson, center Ted Karras, right guard Cody Ford, and right tackle Amarius Mims. For your defense, Joseph Osai, B.J. Hill, T.J. Slayton, Trey Hendrickson, Demetrius Knight, Logan Wilson, Oren Burks, D.J. Turner, Jordan Battle, Geno Stone, Cam Taylor-Britt, Dax Hill. And then for your special teams, Evan McPherson, Ryan Recro, Charlie Jones, and then your long snapper is Cal Odomitis. There you go. There is your Bengals depth chart. Now, we want to talk about Joe Burrow. Let's talk about Joe Burrow. First for yards, 4,918. First in touchdowns, 43. 9 interceptions, tied 89th. 74.7 QBR, third in the league. So, Jay, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Let me go here. 48 sacks. His long was 70. 9 interceptions, 43 touchdowns. He averaged 7.5. Completion percentage, 70.6. Some would argue that this was his best year. when we go back and look at the schedule, let's go back and look at the schedule. We want 2024 before we get into this one. All right. Some would say it was his absolute best year. Well, you had the loss against New England, 16-10, loss to Kansas City, 26-25. Lost to Washington, 38-33. You beat the Panthers, 34-24. You lost to Baltimore in overtime, 41-38. Won against the Giants, 17-7. You beat Cleveland, 21-14. You lost to the Eagles, 37-17. You beat the Raiders, 41-24. You lost to Baltimore, 35-34. You lost to the Chargers, 34-27. You lost to the Steelers, 44-38. You beat the Cowboys. You beat Tennessee. You beat the Browns. You beat Denver in overtime. You beat Pittsburgh, but it wasn't enough. And this is why I said that. Because no matter what, no matter if you're first in yards, first in touchdowns, if you were not able to get to the playoffs and finish the job, nobody cares about the stats. If he would have made it to the playoffs with Joe Burrow's stats, Josh Allen wouldn't have been the MVP. It would have been Joe Burrow. And that's the truth. So what does elite mean? Because if we're putting up 300-400 yards a game, great completion percentage, but we can't win, well, what does that mean? Shout out to you, Purple. And if we look at some of these games, right, some of the games that the Bengals lost, you had the 16-10 loss against New England. You lost by a point, 26-25 against Kansas City. You lost by 5 to the Commanders, 38-33. You lost to Baltimore in overtime, 41-38. These are all basically close games, except for the Eagles game. That was 37-17. You lost to Baltimore by 1. It was 35-34. You then lost to the Chargers, 34-27. So, and you look at some of these games, right? Just for instance, Week 10 against Baltimore, Burrow put up 428 yards. Against Baltimore again, he put up 392. And in both games, Chase had over 100 yards. He had 264 against Baltimore in that one. He had 193 against Baltimore in that one. Shout out to Jolly. What up? What's going on with you? So like I said, we can talk about stats and all that good stuff, but the problem is, at the end of the day, stats don't matter if you don't win. So now, we'll move on to 25. Listen, I like Joe Burrow. I really do. I like Joe Burrow. He's very talented. He obviously went through the injury issue. He did play well. But the problem is, the well wasn't good enough. And so, it's just like a job, right? We'll take it out of football terms. It's just like a job. You know, you work your job, and you know you're doing really good. But if you did a little bit better, and I'm not talking just a basic 9-to-5 job where you work hourly, right? Let's talk a job where there's like bonuses and things like that, or commissions and things like that. You know, you're doing good. You're making 6 figures. You're like, I did enough. I did enough to prove why, you know, I should be at this company, or I should even be in the top 10 of the company. But that guy who was first, that woman or that man who was first, put in that little bit of extra time, spend a little bit more time, you know, working with the clients and building up the relationships and, you know, focusing on the things that they needed to become better. Those are the ones that exceeded well and above average, even though they may have not had the little finite details on the stat sheet. They did a little bit more. And instead of making 100K, they made 175. very simple. Just an example. Shout out to you, Daniel. What up, man? Daniel Escalante in the building. All right, let's get into this schedule. Bengals 2025 going against the Browns. Week 2, the Jags. Week 3, the Vikings. Week 4, the Broncos. Week 5, the Lions. Week 6, Packers. Week 7, Steelers. Week 8, Jets. Week 9, Bears. Week 10 is a bye week. Week 11 is going to be against the Steelers. Week 12, Patriots. Week 13, Ravens. Week 14, the Bills. Week 15, the Ravens again. Week 16, Miami. Week 17, the Cardinals. Week 18 against the Browns. As far as preseason, they will go against the Eagles week 1, Commanders week 2, and then the Colts week 3. And that is going to be the schedule. As far as what I predict, once again, it went back to what I said earlier as far as whether or not, Burrow's going to be playing at his top level and, having to work through that defense. I'm fine with taking Cincinnati in week 1. Week 2 against the Jags. What is Trevor Lawrence going to do with Travis Hunter? Is Travis Hunter going to be the guy that he needs to get past whatever slump he's been going through? Or are these Jags going to keep going down the drain and just keep continually doing what they've been doing? That's the question. For me, I don't trust the Jags. I think, unfortunately, Travis Hunter's talent's going to be wasted there. We'll have to see. I could be wrong, and I'm one to say if I'm wrong, I'll come out and say it. I will. But for right now, I just don't know. I just don't think that, Trevor Lawrence is the guy. And that's not from hate. That's from streaming these games and commentating them all these hours. So, yeah, I'll take the Bengals for week 2. Week 3 against Minnesota. I like the Bengals there as well. Denver Broncos. This is where it gets a little tricky because Denver's sneaky. Bo Nix, he's a baller. He's a gunslinger. I like it. He definitely showed off last season. Now, the question is, will the defense figure him out? Will the defense this year be able to contain all that? I do like that. I think this is going to be definitely a fight on a Monday night at 8:15 for week 4. But I will give the Bengals the benefit of the doubt here. Week 5, I like Detroit. Week 6, Green Bay. This is going to be another really good one. But I will take the Bengals here. Week 7 against the Steelers. Like I said, I thought that, it could be possible that they do swap. But I like the Steelers defense. So, yeah, I'm going to go Steelers there. Week 8 against the Jets. Sorry, Jets fans. But if Joe Burrow is playing elite football and balling the way that he needs to, I just don't see New York winning. Week 9 against the Bears, I'm going to take the Bengals there. Week 10, they get into a bye. Once again, the Steelers, like I said, they could swap. But I like the Steelers defense. I think it'll be a close one. You shut down Jamar Chase, you cause some real problems. Week 12 against New England Patriots. This could be a good one, right? The question mark is Drake May. Is he going to be, New England's guy? Is he going to be the one to really change things around for this organization? Is the coaching going to get it together? There's so many questions there, but it makes you have to lean over to the Bengals. Running into Baltimore. Baltimore had their number twice last season. So I got to go Ravens here. Bills and Bengals, this is where it gets crazy. Y'all know I'm a Bills fan. But this is where it gets crazy because the Bengals have had the Bills number. And in the significant moments. So I do think this is going to be a great one. You're coming into Highmark Stadium. I don't like to veer off, but I will say that with this one, I'm going to have to give the benefit to the Bengals because I feel like if you're able to come back this season and play better ball and keep building off the momentum that you had last season, this could be very interesting and this could be one of those close games. Bengals might take it. Back to week 15 against Baltimore. Like I said, Baltimore had their number. It could be the same kind of situation that they take it twice. History does repeat itself. I like the Ravens there again. They'll take the Dolphins. Week 17 is the Cardinals. They'll take the Cardinals. And then week 18, they'll go against the Browns again, and that's going to be a TBD game. For the most part, like I said, I think we're banking on the fact that Joe Burrow is going to be able to go out there and play at the level that we know that he can. But this year, he is going to have to will his team to win. If Jamar Chase is putting up 200 yards in a game, the Bengals have to win. They have to win. It's a waste of stats. It's a waste of talent if this man is out there putting up 200 yards and y'all got about 35 to 40 points on the board and you still lose the damn game. So, yes, I like Joe Burrow. I like the Bengals. I do think that they'll be able to do some good things this season, but I think you really got to get that defense in order, close out some of these close games, and try to have that ball in your hand by the end of the quarter. So if you're down by 2 or 3 or whatever it is, you have an opportunity to come back, opposed to being the opposite way, because that's what we've seen a lot of last season. So there you go. There's your Bengals, y'all. There's your Bengals. And last but not least, we got the Ravens coming up next before I hop into the chat. So, yeah. As far as the poll, let me go back to the poll because we put up a poll on YouTube for you guys. Who do you think takes the North? 75% of you said the Ravens. 12% said the Bengals. Well, kind of goes back to what I've been talking about. Okay. 4% said the Steelers and 8% for the Browns. Y'all got the Browns over the Steelers. Wow. I was not expecting that. Okay. Ravens I get. I think Bengals should be second. But I definitely thought the Steelers would be third and the Browns fourth, kind of like how the division normally goes. But cool. All right. So we're not done yet. We still got the Ravens coming up. But I just wanted to hop over there and see what the poll had going. Okay. Shadow of the Purple, you picked the Ravens? Okay. Let's go. All right. Let's get on to these Ravens. Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, King Henry, Andrews, Likely, talent, Flowers over there. Likely left. We got Flowers over there. Hopkins. I mean, what else do you want? Justice Hill, Devontae Walker. He still got Isaiah. I was like, yeah, he's still there. Yeah, what am I talking about? There's a lot. There's a lot to unpack here, and for a couple of reasons. As far as with this Baltimore team, you have all the pieces on the board. You have all the pieces that you need. You've got a great mobile quarterback. You now have a solid backup in Cooper Rush. For your running back, you've got King Henry. Then you've got Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell. For your wide receiver, you got Zay Flowers, Devontae Walker, Rashad Bateman, Tylan Wallace, DeAndre Hopkins. You look at these guys and you hear these names and you know that there's quality, there's talent, there's heart, there's commitment. And so I think at the end of the day, you're looking at Lamar Jackson being able to figure out how to make the plays that are going to get this team over the hump. And they did well. They did well last season, even into the postseason, until they ran into the Bills. And that was a controversial game because we know that it could have went either way. So do the Ravens have what it takes? Of course. That's why they're number one in the AFC North. And then getting into, Patrick Ricard, that offensive line, Roddy Stanley, Andrew Voorhees, Tyler Linderbaum, Daniel Falil, and then Roger Rosengarten. That offensive line is very strong, giving, King Henry the opportunity to get through those gaps, giving Lamar Jackson the time to figure things out, whether he's going to run or pass the ball. You've got a solid offense. So why couldn't they get it done? That is the question. And I think one of the biggest things as far as of why we have to ask that question is because we've seen it time and time again. Such solid offense and talent, but when it comes down to the playoffs, the Ravens start to falter. They start to have their issues. And some would say, well, Lamar Jackson just can't close the deal. And part of it is right. You did so well up until this point, but it's just not enough. And yes, those interceptions cost you. The interceptions are what cost you. Those are the significant moments. And we talked about it when it happened live in the game. And I said it, some of you may remember, some of you may not. But I said it when Lamar Jackson threw that interception, that was it. Because the margin was so tight against the Bills that it was whoever made a significant mistake in those kind of moments, you just knew where all the momentum was going to go. And then when he threw that pick, that was it. Now, obviously, we know at the end of the game, if Mark Andrews catches that ball, they do score. But then you still had some significant time on the clock left for Josh Allen to come down and score too. So we can't say that it just would have been over. But there are questions as far as could that defense have stopped Allen? Could they have stopped the Bills? It's quite possible. Is it probable? Probably not. So yeah, I think the mistakes, the problem of trying to do too much, trying to play hero ball instead of letting the game come to him, especially in those significant moments, as I think one of the things that Lamar Jackson's going to have to really figure out over this season if the Ravens do make it back to the playoffs, because you don't want to have another situation where the exact same thing happens. But that's my take on Lamar. I mean, this offense speaks for itself. Then obviously we get into the defense, right? You've got Nnamdi, you got Travis Jones, you got Broderick, Kyle Van Noy, Roquan, Trenton Simpson, Adafi Owe, Nate Wiggins, Kyle Hamilton, Malachi Starks, Alexander, Marlon Humphrey. You've got a solid defense as well. So I think this really all comes down to Lamar Jackson finding the will to let the game come to him, not force things when it matters the most, because he plays his best ball. And so refining some of the things that he's been going through in the postseason is, I think, what's going to matter the most this season. We know that, the Ravens are probably going to make it back to the playoffs. I say it's probably because there's all kinds of variables out there, sure. But we know it's a high percentage that, the Ravens will make it back to the playoffs. So the true question is, okay, we know you might make it back to the playoffs, but are you going to learn from your mistakes, and are you going to be able to triumph and get past that point that you haven't been before? That's the question. But we'll get into the schedule. Before I do, shout out to you, Matt. What up, man? What's going on with you, bro? Let's get into the schedule. Obviously, week 1 against the Bills. Week 2 against the Browns. Week 3 against the Lions. Then you got Kansas City. You got the Texans. Week 6 against the Rams. Week 7 is going to be a bye week. Week 8 against the Bears. Week 9 against the Dolphins. 10 against the Vikings. Then it's the Browns, the Jets, the Bengals, Steelers, Bengals again. Week 16 against the Patriots. Week 17 against the Packers. And then Week 18 against the Steelers. Preseason, Week 1 is going to be against the Colts. Week 2 is going to be against the Cowboys. And Week 3 will be the Commanders. So there you go. There you go. As far as predictions go, revenge game against the Bills Week 1. I love it. Y'all know we're going to be streaming it. We're going to be here for it. That's Sunday Night Football. Make sure you locked in because we're going to be here for it. Excited, ready to go. I'm taking my Bills at home. Week 2 against the Browns. I'm taking the Ravens there. Week 3 against the Lions. This is going to be a really good one, too. I think you got some really solid games. First 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. The Lions, this is going to be a wild one, y'all. You got so much offensive talent. with the Ravens. You got so much offensive talent with the Lions. I think this will be, a high-scoring game. It's going to come down to a mistake. Who's going to make one first? But I will side with the Lions here. I think there's just a little bit more as far as that goes into this one, well above and beyond the offense and the defense as far as, talent. I think this is going to be a game of coaching. I think Dan Campbell is a major risk taker, and against a game like the Ravens, you're going to have to take some risks. And that's not to say that Harbaugh won't do it too, but I just think Dan Campbell's a little bit more riskier. So I'm gonna go with Detroit there. Week 4 against the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Chiefs is losing their edge just a little bit. Just a little bit. So I'm gonna go with the Ravens there. Week 5 against the Texans. I'll take the Ravens there. Week 6 against the Rams. I like it. I think this will be a good one. I think this will be a good little battle. Matt Stafford, that team, they played their hearts out last season. This could be a good one. I think this could be, one of those, high-scoring game, shocker-type situations. I'll take the Rams there for Week 6. Week 7, they'll go into a bye. Week 8 against the Bears, I'll take the Ravens there. Week 9 against Miami, I'll take the Ravens there. Week 10 against the Vikings, I got to go Ravens there. Week 11 against the Cleveland Browns, divisional rival, could be a close one. This is one of those games where they might just, flip-flop. Like I said, it's quite possible. You never know because it's a divisional rival game, and some of these games super close. Who knows what's going to happen? A kick can get blocked. Justin Tucker's gone. You don't have your reliable kicker no more, so those 2 and 3 point games now are severely changed because Justin Tucker's out of there. That's the kind of stuff you got to pay attention to going into the season too. So, I think, like I said, I think they could swap, even though I would lean more towards the Ravens, but I'd be fine. Maybe going against the narrative and picking the Browns there. The Jets, I'm gonna go with the Ravens. Week 13 against the Bengals. Like I said, I like this matchup. I like the matchup. Could be the same kind of situation where they swap, or it could be, like I said, history repeating itself. I'm going to still rock with the Ravens, beat them twice in a row. It's going to be a hell of a game both times, though, for Week 13, Week 15. Pittsburgh. Can the Steelers stop? Can the Steelers stop that run? You got to deal with Henry and you got to deal with Lamar. And then obviously, you got that solid defense with the Ravens. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be able to maneuver, be mobile, or find time in that pocket to throw the ball? It's going to be a lot of trouble. But I'll take the Ravens there. And then, of course, against New England, I got the Ravens. As far as Green Bay, this is a flex game for Week 17. I like it. We're getting into later on the season. These kind of games will be, come down to some kind of seeding, and it changes everything. And then Week 18 as far as against Pittsburgh again, so kind of the same kind of scenario. But yeah, I think the Ravens beyond Week 6 basically have smooth sailing. Barring something crazy happens and barring someone gets injured or any kind of significant problems that the Ravens have, which could happen. You never know. Like I said, these always change, and we always come back week by week and do our predictions by the week once the season gets started. But for right now, this is just what I'm thinking. So there you go. Shout out to you, Jacob. Says, Jay, can I get a Go Steelers? Go Steelers! Shout out to you, man. Purple says, I was thinking of Luta the other day. Yeah, shout out to Luta, one of our OG members. Hope she's doing well. Hope she's doing well. I know she's being taken care of now. That was the last time we talked. Shout out to Luta. All right, Mohammed, what up, yo? What's going on with you? Says JR, my Ravens are your Bills in the AFC Championship this year. Ravens Super Bowl champions 25-26. Listen, from what I'll tell you this though, from what I've seen, anybody who went against those Eagles, it wouldn't have mattered. It would have been nice to see the Bills or the Ravens make it. They wouldn't have won. And so I would rather you not have those teams there than to deal with the heartbreak of it. You know, because there was no beating the Eagles last year. Just offensively, defensively, they were just too much. They were overwhelming. Yeah, it just wouldn't happen. It would have been a good game, but it was just, you know, teams have their moments, and the Philadelphia Eagles were just prime and right for their moment, and they took advantage of it completely. Completely. Francisco, what up, man? What's going on with you? Says, yeah, you're right. The Eagles were a juggernaut last season. Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And it's funny because I think, what was it? Was it season before last? I think it was 2023 season where I had predicted that they would lose, I think it was like 3 or 4 in a row. And they lost that 3 or 4 in a row. And people were so mad at me. Listen, the Facebook post went viral. It had about, I think it had like 100,000, it had like 100 to 150,000 views. And like 30,000 comments, and every Eagles fan was coming at me like no other. And then it happened. They lost 3 in a row. It was the somebody can correct me, but it was the Cowboys, 49ers, and then the Seahawks. And I called it out like 4 weeks in advance before it happened. I said the Eagles are going to lose 3 in a row. And then everyone was talking so much garbage. And then when it happened, I went back. I don't know how many comments I replied to. Because like I said, it had like 20,000 comments. I had to like reply to at least 500 to 1,000 comments. Like, told you so. It was, I just copy and pasted told you so on every one of them. And it was hilarious. So when I seen what they did last year in the 24 season, I was like, okay. I felt like this was like a little bit of a karma from the people that was like talking crazy like me. So much respect to the Eagles for taking care of business last year, because it was hilarious. It was funny. They definitely went underdetected too. The Eagles went underdetected. The turn truly was Saquon Barkley. When the Eagles picked up Saquon Barkley, that was the key piece. That was the chess move that got them over, you know, over that plane they needed to be. So yeah, shout out to the Eagles fans, without a doubt. So there it is, y'all. AFC North. Obviously, you know, for those who didn't get a chance to watch, we'll clip these out later for everyone so they could check those teams out individually. Make sure you guys hit that like, that thumbs up, and of course subscribe. College Football 26 comes out tomorrow, so I will be streaming that. So make sure you're here for it. It's going to be a fun time. If you love the college football game, Madden comes out next month. So we'll be doing college football first, and then Madden next month. But yeah, college football is tomorrow, so we'll be on that. I'm excited to play that. You know, 25 is really good. I think 26 is going to be great. So yeah. There we go. In the meantime, shout out to y'all. Have yourself a good Sunday. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy your day. Prayers up for the people in Texas. I know they're going through a lot right now. So if you are in Texas, prayers to you guys. I hope you guys are okay and being taken care of. Waiting for the story to develop more. But you guys know how we do. You know, significant situations like this, we'll give back. Maybe we could do, you know, a fundraiser. Do some donations for those guys that help out down there, and then we'll go from there. All right, wrapping it up. As far as our poll, who's gonna take the North? Ravens will take it. You guys voted 72%, and there it is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have yourself a great Sunday. And I appreciate you all. Much love to the Wrench Gang. Much love to the family. And I will see you all soon. Peace out.